Hey everyone, this is a continuation of our series upon our debate challenge for others to debate us on the JWO proposition issues we've been discussing or proposing. This is episode 4, and a pro-Paul defender, we'll see who that is, claims Paul did not claim Jesus appeared to Paul in the flesh. So he claims it was solely a vision, therefore Paul is not under the sanction and prohibition of us listening to him that Jesus gives if anyone claims after his ascension, and we're waiting this for the second coming, and someone says they actually met Jesus somewhere in a wilderness or somewhere in public, when Jesus says, that's not going to be me. I will not be returning until what? The second coming, and then every eye will see me. So if anybody says they've had a private meeting with me or less than the entire universe world has seen me, that can't be me. So this person responds to me. We're going to see. He says, I'm suffering from stupidity, but at the same time, he will not be offering to accept my debate. So I'm trying to respond to him and try to get him to accept our offer of debate because he's the first person who is trying to challenge things. But I want to show him and you that trying to dispute that Paul doesn't claim an actual physical appearance of Jesus to him isn't going to win. Can't win because Paul's own words say the opposite of what you're thinking. So he did not look at the evidence, and we'll show you what the evidence is. All right, so now let's turn to the comment I received from Angel of Yahweh 2147, and this was just recently. You are trying way too hard to make some kind of argument against something that falls flat on its face when you read Acts 9. The direct Hebrew to English translation from the Hebraic Roots Bible, a literal translation is, quote, he drew near to Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. Verse 4, and falling on the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? End of quote. Now, this is Angel of Yahweh's comment. It was a light that appeared around him and a voice, not a full-bodied figure of Yeshua. Please stop your stupidness. Okay, let's see. I wrote back, Hi, Angel. You are not aware, apparently, that Paul put the appearance of Jesus on the road to Damascus as an appearance. Today, I uploaded a new video that includes mention of this, a quote of Paul, and the verse. See this URL. And we'll get to that later. I just want to show you the next point I wanted to bring up is I gave him more detail, more written material to research. And I said this, just so you are not blindsided, here is the proof that Paul claimed an appearance and not a vision of Jesus on the road to Damascus, both in Luke's account and in Paul's own account in his epistles. This is from my article on how Paul's experience violates the Son of Man prophecy of Jesus at this URL. And any one of you can find it at jesuswordsonly.org. Go to the topic index, look for Jesus' prophecy about who identified himself as Jesus to Paul. Here's what I wrote. Was Paul deceived by an impostor as Christ warned in Matthew 24? ? Paul's encounter outside Damascus. Several years after, so I'm going to just read you the portion that proves Paul claimed an appearance, okay? Several years after Jesus ascended, Saul of Tarsus, also known as Paul, was walking with two companions on a road outside Damascus. Just previously, Paul was involved in the murder of Stephen and was uttering, quote, murderous threats upon Christians, Acts 9, verse 1. Paul confessed at the time he was a, quote, blasphemer and violent man, 1 Timothy 1:13. Paul was thus a lawless man as he walked to Damascus, a man whom God says he will not listen to his prayers absent repentance. Quote, he that turns away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer shall be an abomination. Proverbs 28, verse 9, KJV. In this spiritual state, Paul then saw a great light and heard a voice which said to him, I am Jesus. Why are you persecuting me? Acts 9, verses 3-7. However, those with Paul, quote, saw no one, although they heard the voice, Acts 9:7. In another version, his companions saw the light, quote, but did not hear, quote, or understand another, quote, the voice, Acts 29, verse 9. This certainly is an extra mental experience of Paul and not a mere vision, as it was shared with two or more others, both in sight and hearing to some extent. In fact, the presence of at least the two other persons suggests Paul intended to convey to us that a physical experience on earth was being verified by at least two witnesses. In fact, Paul elsewhere describes this as a physical appearance of Jesus to himself in the same sense Jesus appeared to the 12 apostles first. Quote, he appeared to Cephas, that's Peter, then the 12, and he also appeared to me. That's in 1 Corinthians 15:5 and verse 8. See also 1 Corinthians 9, verse 1, where Paul says he has seen the Lord. Philip Schaff, the famous evangelical scholar and historian, agrees. He says Paul, quote, put his experience outside Damascus, quote, on a level with the former appearances to the older apostles, 1 Corinthians 15:8. You'll find that at Phyllis Schaff, A History of the Christian Church, Scribner, 1888, Volume 1, at 180. Timeless Truths. Paul was thus not claiming he saw Jesus merely in a dream or vision. Others shared physical sight and sounds of this Jesus on the same road at the same time. This is why Paul could say Jesus was as physically present on the road outside Damascus as Jesus was present in the resurrection encounters with the 12, where Jesus told Thomas to feel the nail holes. What's the key difference, however? The true apostles' experience was before the ascension. Paul's experience was after the ascension, and thus falls under the warning of Jesus in Matthew 24 about imposters saying, I am he, Jesus, coming after the ascension. Just so you know, the ascension is recorded in Acts chapter 1, and Paul's Damascus Road experience is in Acts chapter 9 for the first account, and that is about 3 to 4 years after the ascension of Jesus, according to most scholars' review of the text and history. Continuing, hence, most certainly, Paul claimed a true experience that could be shared with others, where Jesus, post-ascension, returned physically to earth to speak and appear to Paul. In fact, Paul describes it as a presence of Jesus in the wilderness in a resurrected state, which made Paul a witness to a post-ascension return that showed Jesus in a true resurrected state. This is how Paul counted himself among those who could be a witness to the physical resurrection of Jesus, rather than claiming he had a vision of a deceased in heaven. I just want to show you an article that agrees, and what's so astounding about this is that Charles Quarles is a professor, and he's at Houston Christian University, and he writes this article called Paul is a Witness to the Resurrection of Jesus. And he has no idea. He doesn't have any awareness that what he's doing is unwittingly unraveling the validity of Paul. He thinks he's establishing the validity of Paul because he had the appearance of Jesus. It wasn't just a vision. It was an appearance of Jesus. And he thinks that's validating Paul, when instead an appearance invalidates Paul when you combine and look carefully at Matthew 24, Jesus' words about the Son of Man prophecy, where he says, when the Son of Man, you're waiting for him to return from heaven. So when Jesus ascends, we are waiting for him to return from heaven. What will be the sign of his coming? That was the question he's answering from the apostles. And he said, nope. If somebody says they saw me in a wilderness place or a private place, you know it's not me, because when I return, every eye will see me. And so we're waiting for a universal return of the Lord Yeshua, Jesus. Okay? But Charles Quarles, does not know that. He's not processed that in his head, that he's not recorded what that could signify. So he's going to do everything he can to lay out the case that Paul was, in fact, having a true true experience that was shared experientially by people with him. So let's read this. It's entitled, Paul is a Witness to the Resurrection of Jesus. I'm just going to show you a couple of quotes. Okay, so he in the first paragraph here, he says, the mention of the witnesses to the resurrection include Peter, John, the 11, Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James, Salome, Cleopas, and his companion. Okay, then he says, nevertheless, Paul insists that he is a witness to the resurrection on a par with these other witnesses. Pause. That's exactly what Philip Schaff said, as I pointed out earlier. Continuing, the account of Jesus' post-resurrection appearances to Paul is given in detail 3 times in the book of Acts and is repeatedly alluded to by Paul himself in his letters. These various accounts and references are remarkably consistent and early. Thus, Paul is not only a valid witness to the resurrection of Jesus, at least as far as the canons of history are concerned, he is one of the most important of all these witnesses. Absolutely false. It's true that he claimed to be a witness, but this is devastating to the validity of Paul, not the validation of Paul. So this is what was so beautiful. When I'm in court, if I can use a party who opposes what has a different viewpoint of everything, and I can take that witness and make him say things that will destroy the validity of his entire case, that is 10 times more effective to a jury than it ever is when you are just simply looking at your own client trying to say something about the other side. In other words, this guy clearly is a pro-Paul person, and he's destroyed the validity of Paul, but he doesn't know it. Well, that's if you accept the next proposition, which is Paul's claim thereby falls under the prohibition of Jesus in the Son of Man prophecy, which I think is very strong. I think it's impossible to get around as well, but that you have no hope to win this one, because Paul clearly claims he had this appearance. And let's see what this teacher says. So first of all, he goes through the post-resurrection appearances to Paul. Its appearance is described in detail in Acts 9, verses 1 to 19, Acts 22, 6 to 16, 26, 12 to 23. So again, anyone who wants to oppose or answer the issue I've brought up for this first topic of debate, you're going to have to know these three passages down cold. Okay, that's what I, first of all, think. If you want to argue the appearance issue, for sure. After the initial report of the experience, Luke might have saved significant effort and space by simply saying, "And Paul reported to the crowd or Agrippa how Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus." He could have just said that. But instead, Luke insisted on recording the incident in detail 3 times in Acts, highlights the importance of this incident in Luke's thought. But whether it was important or not to him, it's simply recorded 3 times, so we have ample evidence that Paul isn't claiming it's a vision in his head. The nature of this appearance. Scholars perennially debate whether the appearance of the resurrected Jesus to Paul was an objective or subjective experience. The Acts account supports viewing the experience as objective. The bystanders saw the light from heaven, though they did not see Jesus, and fell to the ground along with Paul. They also heard the voice, though for reasons not explicitly identified, they did not understand the words uttered by the voice. And I think it is identified because Luke records that Paul said that Jesus spoke to him in Hebrew. So Paul is hanging out with Gentiles to persecute Christians, probably assistants, and they don't know Hebrew. So it's a mystery to them, or they don't understand what's being said because it's not in their language. And finally, I'm going to show a little bit of that clip I showed last time, the 4-minute clip. I'm going to take a little bit out of that just to discuss the appearance issue. Again, why am I doing this? Because I think it's a real waste of time to try to dispute that. I want to hear arguments on something that can't, is not in the same level. It's simply, it's a fact. Paul claims he had an appearance. Other people with him who could hear the voice and see the light that is not going to be unquestioned. That can't be disputed. Okay. So you have to pick something that isn't so grounded in reality and just claim it didn't happen. That's not going to win an argument. You'll be embarrassed, right? And you have a person who, look at Professor Quarles. He's a pro Paul person, and he admits that Paul had an appearance of Jesus as what he claims happened. So if you have that kind of evidence against you, you're really going to lose. But go ahead and give it a shot if you want. But it's a way. You've got 4 minutes to debate. Don't take time to that much time on this. Just concede this issue and move into the other issue. Maybe you can work on that one. But this one, nobody's ever had a good argument. And just calling me stupid, or I'm teaching stupidity, or I'm revealing my stupidity isn't going to be the way you win an argument. Slandering your opponent will not win debate. In fact, it makes you look really weak to do that. That's another thing, is if the minute you have to dig deep into saying your opponent is stupid or whatever, is the minute you have lost, because that's not relevant. Whether someone is stupid or not is whether the evidence is strong or not. That's what matters. Okay, so now for the sake of this commentator, I want to show him, this is where in the last video I was saying I'm offering and proposing to reduce all of the topic matter down to just this video that's literally 4.2 minutes from scriptural assessments. It has one question that deals with the alleged appearance of Jesus to Paul on the road outside Damascus, and the challenge that we're bringing is, doesn't this violate the Son of Man prophecy where Jesus says, when I'm ascended, I'm not coming back in any private or wilderness place. Every eye has to see me, or else it's an invalid experience. So we want to see what's the argument that can refute this. And I'm just going to show this person who's commentating here, and anybody else who wants to debate, this issue about the appearance is too overwhelming. You're going to lose. And again, I'm trying to help you. One thing I've learned as an attorney, you have to work on those issues. You have a prayer. If you're going to lose an issue, you concede it and you move on. And I don't see how you can win this one. So listen to this. This is going to be the debate video that other people are going to see if we go through this process. And this is from, I'm going to give credit again to Scriptural Assessments. They did a great job in this video. So please listen and enjoy.
Is Paul a false prophet? A scriptural assessment. 9. It should be noted that Paul's alleged encounter was not a vision, but an appearance. Quote, "For I delivered to you as of first importance that I also received that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he was risen on the third day according to the Scriptures. And he had appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. After that he appeared to more than 500 brethren at one time, most of whom remain until now, but some have fallen asleep. Then he, Jesus, appeared to James, then to all the apostles, and last of all, as to one untimely born, he appeared to me, Paul, also. End quote. However, it was after Jesus was taken up in the cloud that Paul states in Acts 9:3-9, Acts 22:6-14, and Acts 26:12-18 that while he was on his way to Damascus, Jesus personally appeared to him and gave him a revelation with a secret mystery gospel.
So this web channel, Scriptural Assessments, and I wish I knew who they were. And this is the only video they ever did on Paul. And they only had like 4 or 5 videos on their channel. So it's very interesting. This is one of them. But I thought they did a great job. How can you overcome Paul's own admission that it was an appearance? And he's saying it's on par exactly with how Jesus appeared to everyone else. So he's claiming I am a witness to the resurrection. So Professor Quarles is not incorrect. Basically, it's Paul's claiming he had an appearance of the resurrected Jesus. So I would recommend to an opponent here is, we lawyers speak to other lawyers. We weigh arguments, and I'd say this is the one you'll lose on for sure. So this is not really one worthy of taking a lot of time on. If you want to say Paul doesn't mean by the word appearance something that was physical and it was really just a vision, I mean, you really have to then deal with the counter argument that why does Paul recount that his people with him could hear the voice? Okay, they could hear the voice. They didn't understand it, but they could hear it. Why would he say that? Because it's not a vision in Paul's own head. That just immediately refutes that. So you got to just think ahead of what your opponent could say and give up on that one. So, and I will honestly say that every time I brought up this argument about the Son of Man, that issue of whether Paul violated or did not violate the Son of Man prophecy, nobody's even touched it. None, not once. And you could bring it up and try to push it in their face and they won't do it. That's why I want to do this video. I want to see someone who is in a position where they must try to come up with an argument to defeat somehow why the Son of Man prophecy doesn't apply to Paul. I pity the man who has to do that because I've thought about it and I can't come up with it. And my training as an attorney is I must set aside my own opinion and try to conceive of counter arguments to how that doesn't apply to Paul. And in all honesty, I've never been able to figure out, even get a hint of any way around it. And that means to me that maybe this is the strongest argument that all Christianity can have a consensus on is whether we know why or not, Paul had a belief that he met the true Jesus, but he didn't. He couldn't have because it violates Jesus' own words in the Son of Man prophecy. And that would be a neutral basis for all of us to say, hey, it's done. We need to move on. We need to move back to Jesus. That would be fine in my opinion. But if there is a weakness to this argument that I have not seen and been able to even conceptualize, I want to know what it is. And I want you, the audience, to help me, those who are opponents of this channel's propositions. But if you have to concede I'm right, well, then just let me know that you realize, Doug, you're right. You've changed my mind. I'm going to follow Jesus from now on. I'm not going to listen to Paul anymore. That would be useful to let me know that this, even just proposing this debate has had some effect on people to just realize there's no way around. Paul is not valid. He did not meet the true Jesus Christ. Anyway, God bless everybody. Take care. Ciao. Bye.